In September of 2000, Celtics legend Paul Pierce was stabbed 11 times during a bar fight in Boston. He suffered wounds to his face, neck, and back, but despite nearly dying and undergoing surgery to repair serious damage to his lungs, Pierce was the only Celtics player to play in all 82 games the following season. Years later, Pierce revealed that he was severely depressed after the stabbing, dealing with constant paranoia over crowds and PTSD from the near-death experience. In 1951, Edward Harrison was playing a round of golf in Washington State when his driver snapped and the shaft pierced his gooch. He staggered in excruciating pain for about 100 yards before collapsing and bleeding out. In 2001, a Canadian man was staying over his mother's house so he could attend his father's funeral. While cleaning the kitchen, he apparently tripped over the open dishwasher door and fell onto the rack of knives that were standing upwards. He was impaled by several knives and eventually succumbed to his wounds. In 1944, a group of American airmen were shot down by the Japanese. Out of the 10 men, 9 of them were captured, tortured, executed, and cannibalized. The only man who evaded capture and survived was future President George H.W. Bush. White House police officer Leslie Coffelt was fatally shot while protecting President Truman from an assassination attempt, but he managed to kill the attacker with a headshot from 30 feet away just before dying. As many as 3 U.S. presidents, as well as Abe Lincoln's son, likely died as a result of contaminated water in the White House. Until 1850, there was no sewage system, and a field of human excrement called night soil flowed freely into the water supply. After President Andrew Garfield was shot, his negligent doctors kept digging into the wound with dirty hands and tools, attempting to find the bullet. They gave him such a bad abdominal infection that he had to be fed through his anus for the last 3 months of his life. His assassin openly confessed at a trial of the shooting, but argued that Garfield's doctors had actually done the killing. One day in the summer of 1984, James Huberty told his wife Etna that he believed he was developing a mental health problem. 2 days later, he asked for an appointment at a San Diego mental health clinic. But the call was logged as a non-crisis since Huberty sounded very polite and stated that he'd never experienced any mental health issues in the past, so he didn't receive a call back that day. The next morning, while at the San Diego Zoo with his family, Huberty told his wife that his life was effectively over. Referring to the clinic's failure to return his phone call, he said society had their chance. Upon returning home, he leaned toward his wife and said, "I want to kiss you goodbye. I'm going hunting for humans." While holding a gun across his shoulder walking out the door, Huberty told his daughter Zelia, "Goodbye, I won't be back." He then drove to the parking lot of a McDonald's near his home and opened fire. James fatally shot 21 people and wounded 19 others before being killed by a police sniper 77 minutes later. In the case that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were left stranded on the moon, NASA planned on cutting off communication with them. They didn't want to record how the men chose to die, leaving them to either run out of oxygen or take their own lives with no further earthly contact. FDNY Ladder 3 was one of the first units to show up at the World Trade Center on 9/11. Its crew of 11 men sadly perished in the collapse of the North Tower, and now their truck is on display in the 9/11 Museum. In April of 2015, 28-year-old Shayna Sims gained access to a funeral home in Tulsa, Oklahoma. She pretended to be a makeup artist to access the body of Tabitha Lynch. Apparently, Shayna resented Lynch and suspected that her husband had been having an affair with her. So as payback, Sims decided to mutilate Lynch's body, cutting up her face and removing multiple organs and chunks of her hair. Court sentenced her to 16 years in prison for unlawfully removing a body part from a corpse. In 1996, mountain climber Beck Weathers and his team attempted to scale Mount Everest. But after coming down with a bad case of snow blindness, Weathers got stuck in a severe blizzard with a wind chill of -100 degrees and soon fell into a hypothermic coma. He miraculously survived, but had to have his nose and both hands amputated as a result of severe frostbite. Nicknamed Mr. Titanic, this was the last photo taken of French diver and Titanic expert Paul-Henri Nargeolet. He saw the Titanic 37 different times before dying on his 38th trip on board OceanGate's Titan submersible. In 1986, a young Indian flight attendant named Nirja Banat was on a plane that was hijacked. The terrorists were targeting Americans, so she hid the passports of all 44 Americans on board. Instead of saving herself, she helped the other passengers escape and died while shielding 3 children from a hail of gunfire. One of those children is now a captain for a major airline and says that Bernat was his #1 inspiration. As a child, Robert Downey Jr. was always surrounded by drugs. His father introduced him to marijuana when he was only 6 years old and allowed him to start drinking once he turned 8. By the time he became a teenager, Robert had already been addicted to cocaine, heroin, and prescription pills. RDJ struggled with these demons for more than 30 years before finally deciding to turn his life around in 2003. This was the last photo taken of Semra Asil before she was pushed off the cliff by her husband Hakan. The pregnant 31-year-old fell for more than 1,000 feet and died immediately along with her unborn child. In 2013, an 8-year-old girl found the lifeless bodies of her parents, brother, and grandmother in her basement. They were apparently poisoned by highly toxic gas emitting from rotten potatoes after going down one by one to check on the person who went down before them. The only reason the girl didn't die was because her grandma must have left the door open before dying, allowing the gas to dissipate. A 22-year-old woman from Ireland was recently left with severe internal injuries after her butt plug was pulled through her body during an MRI scan. She apparently believed she was safe to insert it before the procedure, believing the plug was made entirely of silicone. But it actually contained a metal core, causing it to react to the scanner's powerful magnets. She's expected to recover in the hospital, but this is why doctors always say you should never wear a butt plug while getting an MRI. Morgan Freeman has an oddly dark reason for always wearing his gold hoop earrings. He says it's because they're worth just enough to pay for a coffin if he happens to die in a strange place. The most toxic natural substance on Earth is botulinum toxin, aka Botox. A couple pounds is all you would need to kill every single human being on the planet. The African country of Ghana has 6 witch camps, housing about 1,000 women in total. The camps are for women accused of witchcraft to have a safe place to live without fear of being lynched by their neighbors. Most of the women simply suffer from mental illness, a poorly understood concept in Ghana. Sam White, a Civil War artifact collector from Virginia, was killed in 2008 when a 140-year-old highly explosive cannonball exploded in his driveway while he was restoring it. The blast was powerful enough to send chunks of shrapnel up to a quarter-mile away. White is now considered by some historians to be the last confirmed casualty of the American Civil War. With the Powerball approaching $1 billion yet again, here are some reasons why winning the lottery isn't always so great. In 1999, a Florida waitress was tipped a lottery ticket and won $10 million from it. She was then sued by her colleagues for their share, before being sued by the man who tipped her the ticket. That same week, she was kidnapped by her ex-husband and ended up shooting him in the chest when he threatened to kill her. She then spent the next 10 years fighting a legal battle against the IRS, which she eventually won. In 1978, psychologists performed an experiment to compare the happiness levels of lottery winners versus accident victims who became paraplegic. Surprisingly, this study found that over time, the everyday happiness of lottery winners ended up being lower than the happiness of accident victims. In 1960, an Australian father won $3 million in the lottery and his photo was plastered all over the news. Soon afterwards, his 8-year-old son was kidnapped for ransom and eventually murdered. This tragedy forever changed Australian anonymity laws for lottery winners. After rock legend Chris Cornell took his own life, Linkin Park's Chester Bennington performed the song Hallelujah at his funeral. 2 months later, Cornell's daughter performed the same song at Chester's funeral when he took his own life as well. In 1980, Monica Meyer, the mayor of Betterton, Maryland, died while checking her town's sewage tanks. She accidentally fell in and drowned in 15 feet of human waste. In 2016, an Ohio woman pleaded guilty to abusing her dog after he was left alone in her filthy house for more than a week and nearly died. So the judge sentenced her to sit in the smelliest area of a garbage dump for 8 hours, saying, "If you puke, you puke." A woman who successfully underwent a lung transplant went into anaphylactic shock after eating peanut butter. Prior to the transplant, she never had any issues with eating peanuts. But she later learned that the 12-year-old girl who donated the lungs had a peanut allergy and actually died from anaphylactic shock. This is the tragic story of the tallest man who ever lived. Illinois man Robert Wadlow was born the size of an average newborn baby in 1918, but a mutated pituitary gland caused his body to produce an incredible amount of human growth hormone, resulting in unbelievable growth. As an 18-month-old baby, Robert was already well over 4 feet tall. At age 4, he was 5'3" and wearing clothes that were made for teenagers. He was 6 feet tall by age 8, 7 feet tall by age 12, and 8'4" by the time he graduated high school. But due to his extreme height and weight, Robert was plagued by foot injuries throughout his life, which eventually required ankle braces for him to walk. He died at the young age of 22 from a septic blister on his ankle caused by a poorly fitting iron brace. At the time of death, he had a breathtaking height of 8'11", weighed 440 pounds, and wore a size 36 shoe. His casket was 11 feet long, weighed over 1,000 pounds, and required 19 pallbearers to carry it. During a trip to Paris in 2007, Prince Harry had his driver go through the same tunnel that his mother, Princess Diana, died in, at the same speed her car was going at the time, as he was trying to find closure for her death. He later described the attempt as ill-conceived, saying it only brought him more pain as it was just a regular tunnel that nobody should have ever died in. James Heming, the man who introduced mac and cheese to the United States, served as a slave to Thomas Jefferson and took his own life at the young age of 36 after years of suffering from severe alcoholism. Just last year, a 27-year-old model from New York City shot and killed her husband before turning the gun on herself. It was later revealed that she did it to prevent him from finding out that she cheated on him, which would have resulted in their divorce. In 2022, college wrestlers Kendall Cummings and Brad Lowry were hiking in the woods near Yellowstone when Lowry was suddenly attacked by a grizzly bear. Kendall yelled and threw rocks at the bear to no avail, so he decided to jump on its back. This allowed Lowry to escape and get help while Kendall wrestled the bear until it ran off. Despite several deep wounds, both men were rescued and survived. The internet was stunned when Ariana Grande recently said on a podcast that Jeffrey Dahmer would be her dream dinner guest. She says she's always been infatuated with serial killers and has a lot of questions for the Milwaukee cannibal, but many fans apparently found this idea to be incredibly vile and offensive. A new homeowner in the UK was shocked to find a doll boarded up in a wall cavity holding a note saying she murdered a previous family. While serving a life sentence for murder, James French killed his own cellmate because he allegedly wanted to be executed. His last words before the electric chair were, "How about this for a headline for tomorrow's paper? French fries." In '97, Martin Luther King's son Dexter met with James Earl Ray in prison, the man who was convicted for murdering MLK. Dexter wanted to tell him that he and his family believed Ray was innocent and supported his efforts for a retrial. They fully believed the US government conspired to assassinate MLK. 70s glam rock singer Gary Glitter, the man behind this song, ended up being a total pedophile. He was handed 3 separate prison sentences totaling 19 plus years for historic child sex offenses and owning massive amounts of CP. In 1888, actor Richard Mansfield was playing Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in theaters at the same time as when serial killer Jack the Ripper was murdering women in the area. One theatergoer wrote to police accusing Mansfield of the murders because his stage transformation from a gentleman to a mad killer was so disturbingly convincing. In 2005, California woman Anna Ayala sued Wendy's after claiming she found a human finger in her chili. This lost the chain an estimated $21 million, as Ayala was handed a 9-year prison sentence after it was discovered that she dropped the finger in herself. It apparently belonged to her husband's friend, who lost his finger in an industrial accident and sold it to Ayala's husband to settle a debt. King's mother Alberta was also killed 6 years after her son was assassinated. She was fatally shot by a 23-year-old black man who thought that black civil rights activists and ministers were evil. The man yelled, "You are serving a false god," and shot Alberta with 2 handguns while she was playing on an organ during a church service in Atlanta. Last summer, 36-year-old Italian surfer Giuliana Manfrini died in a total freak accident while surfing off the coast of Indonesia. When she was catching a wave, a swordfish suddenly leaped out of the water and stabbed her directly in the chest with its bill. Despite immediate first aid from her surfing buddies and being rushed to a local hospital, she couldn't be saved. Here's the grave of a woman who chose to leave her name off and instead gave it the inscription, "I was somebody." She apparently told the cemetery sexton that eventually nobody would remember her anyway, so this inscription would at least be more memorable than she was. While on an African safari in 1963, Ernest Hemingway survived 2 plane crashes in a row. The first plane collided with a telephone wire and wound up in the Nile, leaving him with minor injuries. While Hemingway was being rescued from this first crash, the rescue plane also crashed. The plane caught on fire, so Ernest had to smash the door open with his head, causing extensive burns and a fractured skull. The novelist was presumed dead until he walked out of the jungle in high spirits, carrying bananas and a bottle of gin.